Hi, I'm Meghan Cary, and this is probably one of my favorite parts of any festival, when you step off stage and get to go and talk to everybody and have incredible conversations that come out of the energy of music. One of the questions that was posed was, how would you define or describe the power of song? And the power of song is that when we raise our voices together, we are connected at a really profound level. It's like all these walls drop away and our voices come together and they resonate and they amplify. And something changes not only in ourselves and each other, but in the whole space around us, in the room or in the field that we're in. We actually change the vibrational speed and energy of wherever we are. So that's the power of song. That's the power of making music together. And so I love coming off stage and connecting with people right after we've had that experience. So every 8 seconds, a child is born in the US. That's profound. I'd never thought about that. That's like born. It's like every measure. It's like every 8-beat measure, a child is born. That's incredible. Oh my God. Okay, sorry, but I'm going to move away from that. And the question is, what would you tell that child? Well, I don't think I have anything to impart on that child who has just joined the world from wherever we all come from. I think I would instead ask that child, can you please tell me about God? Because I've been around for a few decades and I'm starting to forget. So out of that pure space, I'd like to know. What keeps me performing? That's a great question. There's a lot to performing that's tough. There's a lot to the hustle, and I almost left the whole music world behind right before I met my husband, who was playing keys with me in our set. Peter Farrell, he's amazing. And I'd been on the road for a while and I was really done. I was really ready to just stop the hustle of trying to find shows, trying to book them, trying to get to them, trying to get people to come out to them, all of those things. So, but I kept performing because I think sharing our stories is one of the most, the biggest gifts that we can give to each other and to the world. And the way that I share my story is on the stage making music. So that's why. And that is my dog barking in the yard. Her name is Gracie, and she just saw her friend come home. See, even dogs like to connect. Let's see. Who has had the most influence on you and your musical career? Wow, that's really hard. It's not a famous musician. It's not like that for me. It's probably still the person who brought music to me in the first place, Matthew Black. He taught me that I could sing my heart out and that I could sing my stories in song. And he came into my life and he left. And when he died, he left me the message. He left me what he'd come to bring me, which was music. And so I keep singing it for him and for all the people whose stories need to be shared. So that's it. I hope you guys are really enjoying this amazing concert, and I can't wait to come out and see you in person, live, in the flesh, sometime soon. Thanks so much. Bye.
All right, so If you could relive one day in your life, what would it be and why?
One of my favorite ones with Ashley and Simpson was when we got asked by Lilli Kuzma to be a featured showcase artist at the DJ showcase the first night of Farm. I believe it was 2018. And it was really an honor to perform. And we were kind of new, so... but it was just a lot of excitement. We met our old friend Mark Dvorak there too, and a bunch of other friends, and made new friends. And that was just a really great day and a great weekend and a great conference.
Yeah, that was fun. I liked that too. I think for me, if I could relive one moment as Ashley and Simpson, I would choose when we opened for Daly and Vincent. I think you might be surprised that I would choose that, but I was so new to performing that I honestly didn't even know what in-ear monitors were at that time, and we were just opening for this fantastic bluegrass band, and I was terrified and enthralled and exhilarated and terrified and all at the same time, and so it was cool, and I was glad I made it through it. So it was fun.
That was a good time.
That was. Okay, next question. What are your hopes and dreams for our post-pandemic world?
Oh, I'm looking forward to getting back to performing. It's already starting to resume and open up for some people. And I'm looking forward to watching live concerts in person, performing live concerts. Jen and I were talking with a friend, Deirdre McCullough, recently, who put it so perfectly when she said, performing is a two-way, there's a two-person, like a back and forth. And without the audience, you're only going one way. And so as a performer, it can be kind of draining that way because you feed off of that. And when you don't have that energy, you don't feed and the jokes don't get quite as funny. And, I don't know, how it is.
Yeah.
But, so.
I think my hope for a post-pandemic world is that we remember the pandemic, because I feel like, we tried to come together in community, and we were so grateful for what we had over Zoom that I just hope we don't forget what it really means to hug somebody or be in a live room with people and your family and your friends, and even as performers. I hope we just remember and cherish it now that we kind of are moving back towards that.
And I'll keep those communications with some of the folks that I talk to. I think of some people, one in England or one in, a dozen on the East Coast that I meet with every week, or people in California that we meet with once a month or whatever, and see people in Nashville all the time. And just to keep, a fresh contact with them and see their faces and do that. That'll be great to keep doing that.
Yeah, I just hope we don't forget. Okay. Every 8 seconds, a child is born in the U.S. What would you tell that child?
I would tell that child to go to the Woodstock Folk Festival in Woodstock, Illinois, to make sure to attend, to just experience what it's like to be there. It's just amazing, and that's what I would do. I would also tell them to play guitar, ukulele, and consider being a folk singer as a career.
That's terrible advice. I mean, I would tell them to go to the folk festival, but that wouldn't be like the only thing that I would tell them. Okay. What I would tell them would be to be themselves, to find out what they love and go do that and makes them happy.
Well said.
Right?
Nice.
I mean, it took me a long time to figure that out. So I feel like I should pass that on so that people don't need to. Anyway, okay. How would you define or describe the power of song?
Oh, wow. Yeah. There's magic in that. Yeah. Songs, like even as a writer, sometimes consume you or take you and don't allow you to have control of the situation. And I mean, when you're writing, at least in my opinion. Right. But so many of them carry so many different memories or, lessons and all those things that it's like who I am.
Right. And it's like the soundtrack of your life.
Right.
I think that you can be transported to any place in time or a feeling or a moment that you've had in your life with a song. And it's a powerful thing because it can send quite a message to you.
And then put together or experience in a group, like so in a concert where, you had to be there to experience it, sort of thing,
Right.
is such a different experience with the song, and it begins to take on a life of its own. Or I think of great songs by friends of ours who have now become, folk anthems. But when I was a kid, I thought these were traditional songs that had been passed on from generations, and now I've come to find out that it's written by people I could know and meet and talk with. And so to think that songs have that much of a life is amazing.
Okay, who has had the most influence on you and your musical career?
Wow. There's so many. My father, for sure. Lee Murdoch, definitely a lot. Just all the rock musicians that I tried to play, and learn how to play their riffs, the Beatles, but that, just so many people. I just love music in all forms and fashion. So
Yeah.
what about you?
Well, okay, I would agree that, I could probably name 1,000 artists that influence the way that I sing, but I think that the person who had the most influence on my music was you.
Oh.
Yes, because you were the one that made me I have performance anxiety, and you were the person who kind of helped me get over that and move on to do the thing that I really like to do, which is perform and sing and write songs and play the guitar and all those things. So, true story.
Nice.
Joel Simpson, everybody. Okay, what keeps you performing?
Ooh, yeah. For me, it's that feeling. It's that energy that you get from performing, and I miss that, and I crave it. And so when I don't get to perform, I start acting out in strange ways. I call it feeding the creative monster. So if you don't feed the creative monster, things might happen.
I'm not going to comment.
I'll start doing silly things like singing disco songs, at the top of my lungs and things. So it's true.
What was the question? All right, what keeps me performing? Okay, well, you're right. It is the feeling. I think that there's something so uniquely you that comes out of yourself when you perform that it's just, I don't know. There's something special about that. And it really only happens when you're performing in front of people. And it's a magical feeling of sharing yourself and who you really are. It's like a window.
Yeah, we've said
soul.
that when we perform songs. That it kind of, there's a different thing there.
So there's
an understanding, or an exchange between the audience and the artists, and that all happens at once.
Okay. Anything else you'd like to say to the audience?
Oh, I just say that the Woodstock Folk Festival and that whole community is so amazing, and thank you for everything that you do. Please, support them, and if you can make it out there, they have open mics and things that with some of the other organizations out there, like Off Square Music, and it's worth the trip out there, and the nicest folks you'll ever see. And stay on their website and stay on their email list to see what's going on.
Yeah, I would definitely say that we have a pretty special folk community in the Chicagoland area. And Woodstock is just a prime example of just a great community of people that come together and are welcoming. We've been so welcomed by that community, and it's just really nice. So thank you for having us.
Hello again, Woodstock. I've decided to video the answers to your very, very interesting questions. It's great to do this for this year. I've written your questions up here, and I'll do my best to answer them. One day that I'd like to relive, I think it'd probably be the birth of my son. I think that was a day which I always look back on as being probably the most profound, and I'll try not to burst into tears next time. Anyway, just the one day, and then I hope he's immediately 10 again straight afterwards. Please. Hopes and dreams of a post-pandemic world. Well, I think there's many. I think we've reasons to be optimistic in a sense that it's usually such a large, momentous period in history which actually brings us forward. And I do hope that happens. and there's a noticeable change. There's a noticeable change in the way we can we connect better with our hearts. We see fewer borders. We just see ourselves as a species that is less separated and can go forward in a with a noticeable change. That would be good. That's what I'd like. Next question. Oh yeah, every 8 seconds in the US a child is born. I'd like to say you've come to a wonderful place, and we've got to save it. We've got this mission. We've got to save it. It's and it's not your fault, but you're at a wonderful place, and we can keep it that way. And but we need your help. Thank you for coming along. Question about the power of song. Yeah, it's one of the most underrated things, I think. It's more of a healing and tool and method, more than we know, more than we realise, I think, a lot of the time. It is a powerful thing. It's kind of recognised as being pretty high up in the subsistence chart after food and shelter and water. And power of song is, yeah, I can't imagine my life without it, and it's been a great teacher too. Yeah, it's really important we have it in our lives. And the next question, the biggest influence in my life, musical influence. Well, I mean, besides the obvious of those which have made me into a folk singer, such as perhaps Bob Dylan or Buffy Sainte-Marie or someone like that, I'd have to say overall, in a sort of deeper way, it'd have to be my father. He was an amateur musician. He was a lovely singer. He was a kind of crooner, if you like, of the sort of 40s, 50s variety, and he was a lovely singer. Although he was very much against me doing this at the very beginning, and you can understand how a parent would be worried about such things. In his later years, he was extremely supportive, and yeah, he was a great influence in many other ways, not just directly music. So I'd have to say him. And what keeps me performing? Well, there's the sheer love of it, I think, definitely. And you're meeting making friends. You're meeting fellow musicians. It's a wonderful thing to do, and that's what keeps me performing. I suppose it's a sense of sort of like contributing, and also having a sense of purpose about it, really. And so. That's it. Yeah, it's just and loving the songs, really. I mean, that just keeps me going. Anything else to say? Well, yes, it's been a tough year for us all. I mean, a lot of us have lost friends and relatives through this time, and it's been we've all experienced a hardship in ways that we just came out the blue, didn't it? And yeah, it makes you realise what we've got when we are all together, and I'm looking forward to having that wonderful holistic experience with the audience. You, the audience, who are, yes, without you, the whole thing doesn't really exist. So there we are. Thank you very much. Thank you, Woodstock. Bye.
First, though, before we clap. Yeah.
And then we'll clap.
And then we'll clap. All right, we've got some questions here. Brian, if you could relive one day in your life, what would it be and why?
I think the day I was born.
Really?
Because I don't remember that day.
Oh, well, that's interesting. What are your hopes and dreams for our post-pandemic world?
That we work more as a community.
Ooh.
And support one another, because we're all connected after all.
I married him. Okay, every 8 seconds a child is born in the US. What would you tell that child?
Don't forget that you're capable of almost anything if you believe in it. I've never heard these questions before.
Who would you define how would you define / describe the power of song?
Oh, the power of song. It cuts through in a different way than the spoken word does. It's magic.
Maybe I should be asking you these not on camera with you. I don't know. Anyway. Who has had the most influence on you and your musical career?
Who? Well,
yeah.
I'll say my journey, which has introduced me to many people in many different environments.
Yeah. What keeps you performing?
I love it. I have fun.
Anything else you'd like to say to the audience?
I love you.
Oh, that's cute. Okay.
And now I should read you these questions.
Yep.
So I have these questions for you, Madeline.
Oh, you do? Okay.
Yes.
Ready.
If you could relive one day in your life, what would it be and why?
Oh, gee. We recently were up at the cabin and we were hanging out, and it was Brian and Hugo and I, and we were on the meadow talking, and Hugo was playing on the porch. It was the best. It was awesome. I'd do that again. I'd do that whole day again.
What are your hopes and dreams for our post-pandemic world?
Ooh, yeah, remembering how much we missed the connection. It was less about the stuff and more about the people and the places and the beings that we inhabit the world with. A lot of us were talking about that, and I really don't want us to forget.
Every 8 seconds, a child is born in the U.S.
Don't I know it?
What would you tell that child?
Oh, I mean, I think I love you, and then what Jalaluddin Rumi says, which is there are hundreds of ways to kneel and kiss the ground. Don't forget, there are hundreds of ways to kneel and kiss the ground.
How would you describe the power of song?
I liked what you said about cuts through. The power of song. It's magic, it heals, and it's something that we have so much access to, and we can make ourselves anywhere. Pretty cool.
Who has had the most influence on you and your musical career?
Ooh, breath.
What keeps you performing?
The audience. I miss you all so much, and I can hardly wait to see you in person again. And I realized during this time how much I love and miss being with a group of people and exchanging energy, exchanging this heart stuff.
Anything else you'd like to say to the audience?
Thank you so much for being here. We love you, and I can hardly wait to be with you again and to make music with you. And I hope that you're getting the nurturing and taking the time to do the healing that you really need to do with this one wild and precious life, as Mary Oliver would say. There you go.
Hey everybody, John Shain and FJ Ventre here.
Hello, hello.
One of the kind of entertaining things about being involved in this online folk festival is these fun questions that we are supposed to ask each other. And in the spirit of things, FJ and I did not look at the questions ahead of time.
John's wearing his question and answer glasses right now. He's
question number 1, do they look all right? Okay, so FJ.
Yes, John.
If you could relive one day in your life, what would it be and why?
Oh, wait, would that be the day in high school that we were going to be in a band together and I could go back and decide not to do that? You know.
That's not the real answer, is it?
The day my daughter was born, but that was just kind of, I was overjoyed, but I was also kind of terrified. Yeah. But yeah, I wouldn't change that. I wouldn't go back and I don't know. I'm going to weasel out of this question and say that I've had some really great days and some really bad days, and they all got me to where I am. So
That's a good answer. All right, you ask me one. Any one of them.
Anyone, you say?
Yeah, any one of them.
What is your favorite color? John, my friend,
Yes.
how would you define the power of song?
The power of song, I believe, is kind of like an athlete in the flow state. When you are in the song, I mean really inside of it, after a while, you don't know if you're the one singing the song or if the song is singing you. And I've been in that situation, and I think anybody who's been at like a old time jam or just playing with their friends or being on stage, everybody has felt it at some point that the song itself seems to come to us from up above, and it's just an amazing thing. It's one of the great joys in life.
Higher power. John, that was a good answer.
Oh, thank you.
I'm impressed.
We should do this more often.
We should.
Maybe become part of our shows. Who knows?
Send your questions to www.johnshain.com.
All right, FJ. Sticking with the musical idea, who has had the most influence on you in your musical career?
That's actually an easy answer. Actually, I think probably the same person who had the most influence on you, which is me. No. Well, in case you don't know, most of you probably don't know that John and I met when we were in high school.
We did.
We were in a band together back then, and we're still playing together all these 5 years later.
Yeah.
We've aged horribly. No, we had a music teacher in high school who was a big inspiration to both of us by the name of Chris Stowens, lovingly nicknamed Joe Stowe. And Joe Stowe was he was a huge influence on us. Other than him, as far as major influences, again, I'm going to punt and say I've heard so much music that's inspired me. A big moment I remember was seeing the jazz bassist Ron Carter playing in Boston, and that's what encouraged me to pick up an upright bass. That was the moment I can remember that I wanted to play the upright bass. So Chris Stowens and Ron Carter.
They're in good company together.
Yeah.
All right.
All
Your
right.
turn.
Sure. This is a good one. What keeps you performing?
Well, a lot of drugs. I got to tell you, a lot of drugs. No, really, what keeps me performing? After you've been doing this for a while, you kind of have to keep doing it because it becomes a part of you. And I don't know really who I am if I haven't been on stage for a little while. So I think it's just my identity to myself, and it's what I do. I mean, in addition to loading and unloading gear out of the car.
That keeps you performing.
That keeps me performing too.
Yeah, I'm with you, man. That was good. The guy who's editing this, you think he's going to edit out the first part of that question?
No, I think he's going to leave it in.
He's going to keep it real? Okay.
I mean, he knows what the deal is.
All right, so I'm going to give this back to you and ask any question on that sheet or otherwise.
Any question on this sheet? All right. FJ, I've heard it told that every 8 seconds a child is born in this country. What would you tell one of those children today?
Probably what I would have told myself if I could go back in a time machine, which is actually really pay attention. It's a weird world out there. You got to learn to think critically, and you got to learn to accept that there are people who are going to think differently from you, and you got to find a way to realize that they're human too, and you got to figure out how to, I guess, bridge the divide between you and them. It doesn't always work, but I'm sure it would help if a lot of people took that tack.
Excellent.
All right.
See, this is fun, FJ.
I told you, John.
I think he was worried, but he's coming up with some beautiful answers, and I'm inspired. What can I say?
Oh, yeah. Okay. Actually, we're coming to the end here. Let me see. What keeps you performing? Influence every 8 seconds. Okay.
Oh, that one there.
Which, this one here?
Yeah.
Okay. Actually, this is a good one. What are your hopes and dreams for our post-pandemic world?
He'll fix it in post.
Thank you.
Well, the thing about the pandemic that I actually found, I don't know how to say this. There was a positive time during the beginning of the pandemic. I mean, that is, unless you got sick or had a friend or family member who did, in which case maybe there's no positive part about it. But for us here, I really enjoyed that little time when there weren't many cars on the road, where people were out in nature when they could be, where things were quiet. I think that people realized that a lot of things that we think we need for today's world weren't really as necessary as we thought. There was still love, there was still music, and the nature got a little bit of a chance to rejuvenate itself. And my dream for the post-pandemic world is that we can maintain a little bit of that quieter space, try to dial back some of the things that we think we have to do, and pay more attention to the things that are the most important.
Well said. From a guy whose hair is now on fire again now that we're coming out of the pandemic. Yeah, I agree with all that. And
All right.
I would also hope that that people can figure out a way to maybe agree a little bit on what's best for the common good. That would be really nice.
Yeah. All right. The last
okay.
question is really, is there anything else you'd like to say to the audience here?
Not really, other than we've truly enjoyed playing for you, and we hope to see you in person really soon. Speaking of the pandemic, this has been a good chance to sort of reevaluate and sort of privately work on our chops and our music. And we've been lucky to stay busy here in the studio here recording. But really, it would be nice to see some folks out and about and to get to travel again, because it's been a little while. Hope you all stay well, and we'll look forward to seeing you soon.
We hope to see you up in Illinois at the festival in person sometime. Thanks for
Take
having
care,
us.
all.
Okay.
And off.
Hi, Joe Jencks here. The Woodstock Folk Festival invited all of us performers to answer some questions, and there was an interest in hearing our response to these questions. It did come with a caveat that we offer brief answers to these questions, but several of them were, in essence, essay questions, so I've done my best here to keep it short and precise, and thanks for asking deep questions and for wanting to know the answers. What surprised you during the last 14 months? Well, now 16, by the time you're watching this, maybe even 17 months of the pandemic. And my answer is generosity. I have known my entire career that I'm part of a community that is extraordinarily generous. But I saw people double down on that generosity in ways that I would never have imagined. DJs, presenters, fellow artists, the fan base, all of the people who are invested in folk music worked so hard to keep us together, to look out for each other financially, to look out for each other's health and well-being in ways that I never could have imagined. I saw community rise to the occasion in ways that, even still, in spite of my faith in who we are, it surprised and inspired me. If you could relive one day of your life, what would it be and why? If I could relive one day of my life, it would be the day that I went whitewater rafting with both of my parents in the Yukon River. My parents, from their childhood, when the Alcan Highway was being built during World War II, had just really dreamt of, both of them independently had dreamt of driving the Alcan Highway. And when I was 16, my mom and I lit out for Alaska, and my dad met us in Edmonton, and we spent 3.5 weeks together driving the Alcan Highway and all over Alaska. But perhaps the highlight of that trip was the day that we went whitewater rafting in the Yukon River. I never before or since saw my parents with such joyful abandon, exploring the wonders of nature and experiencing nature in such a personal way. I got a couple of photographs of them on that trip that are absolutely joyful and, beautiful memories. Every 8 seconds, a child is born in the U.S. what would you tell those children? For my part, I would probably quote Billy Joel and say, we didn't start the fire. Though we didn't light it, we're still trying to fight it. And I would also say to all of those young people that there are tools in your hands, technologies and capacity that my generation and the older generations could never have even imagined. You have tools in your hands that allow you to shape the world differently and to make positive changes. Please use those tools for good. Please learn how to make a difference and learn how to work with each other rather than just for profit or gain or advancement of one group of people. Use those tools for the betterment of everybody, please. If you could perform with one performer, living or dead, who would it be? I didn't have to think about that question very long. My answer is, without equivocation, Mahalia Jackson. If I could go back in time and sing with anyone, it would be Mahalia Jackson. She was part of the birth of the gospel music scene in Chicago. She was friends with Thomas A. Dorsey. Mahalia is just an extraordinary American. She had her hand in the blues and in jazz and gospel and folk. But she's perhaps best known for her role in the civil rights movement, and she truly was perhaps the greatest civil rights singer of her generation and maybe even all time. And Mahalia died 5 days before I was born in 1972. And I have in my mind this image of Mahalia giving me a high five as she was on her way out and I was on my way in, handing me one of her batons and saying, "Keep it going." When I think of that, when I think of our souls passing in that transition and somehow being of common purpose, it brings me a lot of hope. What does music mean to you? Well, to me, music is everything. Music is life. Music is breath. Music is joy and hope and sorrow and grief, all combined. Music is the breath within our bodies and between us. Music is the way that we express those things that words alone cannot express. Music is for me inseparable from the very fabric of life. Music is everything. How did you get interested in music? Wow. I can't remember a time when I was not interested in music. I'm the youngest of 7 children in my family, and all of my older siblings and my parents were all very involved in music in one form or another, singing together as a family on vacation or in church or just doing chores around the house. Music was an integral part of the fabric of our lives. And from that sense of having music as part of my birthright and part of my heritage, I moved on to doing music theater, and I did church music, and I eventually went to conservatory and studied music full-time. And I have been blessed for the last 22 years to be on the road full-time, pandemic parenthetically notwithstanding. And I was making music close to full-time for almost 5 years before that. So, yeah, music has always been, and I hope it always will be, at the center of my life. How would you describe or define the power of song? I would say that a song says things that words alone can't. My mom used to say that to sing something is to pray twice. And I think that's true of anything. I think any message that we put into a song is amplified and enhanced if we've done our job well. And a good song, well, if a picture's worth 1,000 words, I think a song can be worth 10,000. What are your hopes and dreams for our post-pandemic world? I would say for myself that my truest hope and my truest dream for a post-pandemic world is that we come to a greater understanding of our interconnectedness and the mutuality that binds us to each other. We have so many big problems to face in this world, economically and racially and environmentally. We have so many things that we need to look at, and none of us has the answer all by ourselves. We have to work together and see our fates as integrally connected to each other. The pandemic didn't rise out of just nowhere. It's very possible that it is connected to global climate change. And so we have to see all of these different things that happen in the world as related to each other, and therefore the solutions that we find to these problems will be found in the way that we relate to each other. Yeah, that's my hope, is that we can see lovingly our commonality as being the first and foremost obligation we have in the world.